So I want to take it back, right? You were born in Nigeria,
Yeah.
right? Then you moved to Dallas at 8 years old?
About 8, yeah, 8, 9.
How was,
fourth grade level, so
okay.
8, 9.
Yeah. How was that transition? How was that moving?
It was a tough. I mean, when you're a kid, you know, so you're only able to comprehend, you know, that moment. 9 years of experience. So, you know, at that time, it seemed like it was a lot. It was difficult because you don't know the little slang words, you know, the dudes at school be trying to make you say, and so you get in a little bit of trouble. But over time, it's kind of like, you know, you just assimilate to the culture. And, you know, now I don't even remember that much about it.
That's all right, that's all right. So when did you discover that competitive nature in yourself? How old were you then?
Man, I grew up with 3 brothers, so all 3 of us was always very, very competitive, whether it was playing football, they call soccer here, playing that, or actual football, all of it was we were very competitive throughout the whole process.
Okay, so let's fast forward to high school then, right? You were a dominant wrestler at Bowie High School out of Arlington, right? Is it true they called you Marty? I heard they called you Marty.
I wasn't always a dominant wrestler.
No?
So hence the name Marty.
Yeah,
you know.
okay.
Coming in, I was tiny. I went to high school, I was about 5'2", 103 pounds. And I'm Texas. You know, I thought I was about to be the star running back in the football squad. You 100 pounds in Texas football. It wasn't working out. And the coaches just kind of kept poking at me because the assistant football coach on the freshman team was the assistant wrestling coach. And he kept asking me, why don't you come on in and try wrestling? And I was like, nah, man, I don't want to get hit with chairs, you know. And they laughed at me and said, why don't you come on in and try it? So I eventually went on in, and it was just, I just remember a bunch of sweaty dudes in there, and the room had a smell to it. And I was like, damn, man, I don't know if I want to do all this. And you know, in football, we make fun of anything that ain't cool, you know, really. And so I went in there and they put me, it was that first day, they threw me in a group of 4, and we had a girl in our group. And, you know, we started wrestling and whatnot. So I'm thinking, this little girl, I'm gonna, you know, we wrestling, and boom, she threw me down, took me down, put me in a half Nelson, held me there. I didn't, you know, you don't know how defeating it is as a man to not be able to get off your back or do what you want. It's like, why can't I get off my back? But it was just that day walking home, I just felt so defeated. That day just told me, it was like, man, you know what? I'm gonna come back tomorrow. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna try it again. And next thing you know, I kept coming and kept coming. You know, the weeks went to months. Next thing you know, the following year, I didn't even go out for football. I just went straight into wrestling. And it was like, it's like everything, man. It was work, you know, working at it. Freshman year, I didn't really wrestle. Sophomore year, I started wrestling a bit more. It wasn't until that summer of my junior year that I decided, you know what, I want to be good at this. So I dedicated myself fully, and, you know, the sky was the limit after that.
And then fast forward, right? Then you start off at William Penn out in Iowa. Things didn't work out there, right? But then it definitely worked out at University of Nebraska at Kearney, right? So talk about like your college experience. How was that for you?
Oh man, college, it was, I think I was blessed. And at the time, I didn't really like it. I didn't know how to just take it or adjust to it. But I was blessed because, you know, you come from Texas, Dallas, Texas, and then you end up in Oskaloosa, Iowa. And I'm in a small town. When school was in, maybe 15,000 people in that town. And so having to adjust to that, and then going into a restaurant, and when you sit down, everybody turn around and look at you like this. And it's like, man, I don't know if I can do this. But it was a life lesson that I needed to learn, that I needed to go through. It was after that I knew what I didn't want. And then it was, when I went over to Nebraska, it was like, okay, you know, they're willing to give me this treatment and give me this, you know, room to grow and things like that, and I just took off running and never looked back. Well, we've talked about a lot of wrestling, right? We know you now as, you know, a absolutely dominant UFC fighter. So when was it that, you know, the desire to actually, you know, stand up and fight came about, right? Like I know in 2010, you helped, you know, coach at a camp. Is that correct? Well, yeah. I mean, it's when I was over at Nebraska, I had 2 teammates that would fight during the summers, because obviously your NCAA rules, you can't get paid to fight. So he would fight. Him and his twin brother, they would fight in the summer. So that was the first time I was actually exposed to fighting. And it's funny, me and John Jones actually watched our first ever UFC event together. And I remember that moment when we first saw it, we looked at each other, it was like, nah, man, we're not gonna do this. This ain't for us. But then fast forward years later, I have college teammates that are doing this. And so during the summers, I get to watch them do it and compete. But I always remember I was kind of afraid of it. I was like, damn, man, you know, in wrestling, it's still controlled, you know, the rules and things like that. Yeah. But this, it looked like they throwing legs, they kicking, elbowing, doing all that. I don't know if I could do that. So when I got done in 2010, I was training at the Olympic Training Center. So while I was living there, I got, you know, invited to be a guest coach on the Ultimate Fighter season 14 of the UFC show. So I helped coach that, and while I was coaching that, it drove home the point that I really didn't want to do this, you know, because I had got to see these guys live in a house with a bunch of guys that they were gonna fight at any given moment, and watching them, and it was, you know, you're in a house, you have no phones, you have no books, you have no TV, you have nothing. You're just there. And so whatever problems, whatever troubles these guys create, you had to be in there, you had to live in it. And after witnessing that, I was like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. And then I went back, and then wrestling just wasn't working. It was just, once I went back, I didn't realize that I had fell in love with the sport. So I went back, now I'm trying to go back to wrestling and do what I've been doing, and it felt like something was missing. And then at 2012, you know, I didn't qualify for the Olympic trials, and I was just like, you know what, I need to do something else. I packed up, moved down. I had met Rashad Evans the year before, and Rashad said, hey, why don't you come down here and train with me? And I said, all right, I'm gonna slum it out. I'm gonna go down there and train. And you know, when I do something, I do it to the utmost. I don't slack off. I don't think I maybe get there. No, I'm gonna get there. And you know, that was my whole plan, and that was my, you know, I felt like that was my purpose, and here I am.
Exactly. That's what I was just getting ready to say. Look where you're at now, right? So essentially, you almost had to like take that leap of faith, right?
Absolutely.
Now, what would you say to the person that might be hesitant to take that next step? What's your advice to them?
My advice is simply just what I went through in my head. You know, a lot of people like to say, hey, you know, make sure you have a, you know, plan A, then you have a backup plan, then you have a backup plan for that. Nah, I didn't really have all that. I was gonna go be champion at this. And crazy enough, in my mind, when I was leaving the Olympic Training Center, I was dating this girl who was a boxer at the time. And so I was leaving, and I'm like, okay, if I'm leaving, all right, I'll be back. Let me just go back and train boxing. I'll be back here in 4 years. Completely negating the fact that it was dudes trying to make the Olympic team for boxing that have been boxing since they was 4 years old. Yeah. I didn't care. My mindset was, when I leave here, I'll be back here in 4 years making the Olympic team in boxing. And I was like, throwing wrestling out the window. Because, like I said, I was still a little bit afraid of MMA. And then I don't know, it was like a revelation that hit me in the head, like, wait, you're gonna throw away the 14 to 16 years of wrestling that you just learned just to go into a new sport? And then I was like, you know what? Nah, I can mix it. I can do them. Yeah, I can put them together. Because at the end of the day, wrestling is what controls the real estate of fighting. It doesn't matter what's going on out there, you know, if you're getting hit, you're getting kicked, wrestling controls where that fight takes place. And you can ask in a fight, there's only 3 positions you can end up in a fight. You know, you could both be standing up, throwing punches at each other. You could be on the ground, one guy's on top of you beating you up, or you on top of them beating them up. 67% of a fight already is on the ground. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and do MMA. Let's go do that.
Let's do it.
And so the rest was history after that.
There you go. Came all full circle, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man, thank you.
Appreciate that.
you. Yeah.